My controlling mother-in-law broke into our house and violently cut off my hair. While I was sleeping, my husband knew the entire time and had been lying to my face for months about her psychotic behavior. The bedroom was still dark when I woke up yesterday morning. Eric, 34M, had already left for his early shift at the factory, so I, 32F, was alone. As I sat up, something felt wrong. There was a strange draft on one side of my head. When I reached up to brush my hair out of my face, my hand met skin where hair should have been. My heart pounded against my ribs as I stumbled out of bed and rushed to the bathroom mirror. Half of my head was shaved, not professionally done, but hacked away with what must have been kitchen scissors, leaving uneven patches and jagged edges. Clumps of my auburn hair still clung to what remained, while the rest lay scattered around my pillow like evidence at a crime scene. For a moment, I just stood there, unable to process what I was seeing. Then the bathroom floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. Eric and I have been married for 5 years. We met at a community college where I was taking night classes in business administration, and he was studying mechanical engineering. He proposed after a year of dating, and we bought a small house on the outskirts of town. I work as an office manager at a local dental practice, and between our two incomes, we've been comfortable. Not wealthy, but secure. Our relationship had been good, or so I thought. Sure, we had the occasional disagreement, mostly about his mother, Daniela, 62F. Daniela never approved of me. In her eyes, I was never good enough for her son. She'd make comments about my cooking, my housekeeping, my appearance. Small digs that Eric would brush off as just mom being mom. I tried everything to win her over. I invited her to dinner twice a month. I remembered her birthday and bought her thoughtful gifts. I even took a week off work last year to help her recover from minor surgery. Nothing worked. She remained cold, critical, and dismissive. 3 months ago, Eric's cousin Kyle, 28M, came to visit us. Kyle is openly gay and has been with his partner for 8 years. During his stay, he and I got along great. He's funny and kind, and we share similar tastes in books and movies. One day, Kyle and I went out for lunch while Eric was at work. We spent a couple hours at a cafe downtown, talking and laughing. It was completely innocent, just two people enjoying each other's company. But somehow, Daniela found out about this lunch. She started calling Eric daily, telling him I was having an affair with Kyle. It didn't matter that Kyle is gay and has been with his partner for nearly a decade. In Daniela's mind, the lunch was proof of my infidelity. Eric initially laughed it off, telling his mother she was being ridiculous. But Daniela persisted, calling several heresies a day, sending Eric links to articles about wives who cheat, telling him stories about friends whose spouses had betrayed them. For the past month, Eric has been distant. He comes home late from work. He barely speaks during dinner. He sleeps on the edge of the bed, as far away from me as possible. When I asked what was wrong, he claimed it was stress at work. I believed him, or tried to. After discovering my hair, I called Eric at work. The phone rang 6 heresies before he answered. His voice was flat when I asked him to come home immediately. He didn't ask why. He just said he'd be there in 20 minutes. When Eric walked through the door, his eyes widened at the sight of my head. He flinched, looking away quickly. His hands fidgeted with his car keys, a nervous habit I've seen countless heresies. I asked him straight out if he knew what happened to my hair. He shook his head, but wouldn't look at me. I asked him if anyone else had been in our house. He hesitated before mentioning that his mother had stopped by early this morning to drop off some food she had made. I asked if he had given her a key. He denied it at first, then admitted she had made a copy of our spare key months ago. I asked if she had gone into our bedroom. Eric's face turned red. He stammered that Daniela had evidence I was cheating on him with Kyle. She had shown him text messages between Kyle and me discussing lunch plans. The texts were completely innocent, making plans to meet at a restaurant downtown. But Daniela had convinced Eric they contained secret codes and hidden meanings. Eric finally admitted that Daniela had asked for permission to teach me a lesson. She wanted to cut my hair while I slept as punishment for my supposed infidelity. Eric had let her into our bedroom that morning before he left for work. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My husband had allowed his mother to assault me in my sleep. I grabbed my phone and called Daniela, putting her on speaker so Eric could hear everything. Daniela answered on the second ring, her voice falsely sweet. When I confronted her about cutting my hair, she didn't deny it. Instead, she told me I deserved it for cheating on her son. I reminded her that Kyle is gay and has a long-term partner. Daniela laughed and said that's what all cheaters say to cover their tracks. My whole body shook during this conversation. The room seemed to spin around me. I ended the call and turned to Eric, who stood in the middle of our living room looking lost. Eric began making excuses for his mother. He claimed she was just protecting him, that she loved him and didn't want to see him hurt. He suggested I could wear a wig until my hair grew back. He asked if we could just move past this. I went to our bedroom and packed a bag with clothes and essentials. Eric followed me, asking where I was going. I told him I was staying with my friend Sarah, 31F, until I figured out what to do. He tried to stop me, saying we needed to work things out, but I pushed past him and left. I've been at Sarah's apartment for the past 24 hours. My phone has 27 missed calls from Eric and 15 text messages begging me to come home. I haven't responded to any of them. I'm still trying to process what happened and decide my next steps. Eric betrayed me in the worst possible way. He chose his mother over me. He let her violate me while I slept. I don't know if I can ever forgive that. Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since I left Eric. I'm still staying at Sarah's apartment, sleeping on her pull-out couch. Sarah has been incredibly supportive, letting me stay as long as I need. I had to go back to work after taking a week off. My boss was understanding when I explained what happened and let me wear a hat at the office until I can get my hair fixed properly. 3 days after I left, Eric showed up at Sarah's apartment unannounced. Sarah wasn't home, but I was. I almost didn't answer the door, but through the peephole, he looked so defeated that I relented. Eric sat on Sarah's couch staring at the floor. His clothes were wrinkled, and his face was unshaven. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. For the first era since this nightmare began, he apologized. Not just a quick, "I'm sorry," but a lengthy admission of his wrongdoing. Eric explained that his relationship with his mother had always been complicated. After his father died when Eric was 12, Daniela became extremely protective of him. She controlled who he could be friends with, which activities he could participate in, even what clothes he wore. As he got older, he learned to hide things from her to avoid her disapproval. When we started dating, he didn't tell her about me for 3 months because he knew she wouldn't approve. According to Eric, Daniela had never accepted any woman in his life. His previous girlfriends all eventually broke up with him because of her interference. When he proposed to me, Daniela refused to attend our engagement party. She only came to our wedding after Eric threatened to cut contact with her. Over the past few months, Daniela had been telling Eric that I was distant and secretive. She pointed out when I was on my phone, suggesting I was texting other men. She questioned why I sometimes worked late, implying I was meeting someone. When she learned about my lunch with Kyle, she latched onto it as proof of her suspicions. Eric admitted that he knew Daniela was wrong. He knew I wasn't cheating, but after weeks of her constant accusations, he began to doubt himself. The night before the hair incident, Daniela had called him crying, saying she had absolute proof of my infidelity. She claimed to have hired a private investigator who had photos of me and Kyle together. Eric asked to see these photos, but Daniela said they were at her house. That morning, Daniela arrived at our house before Eric left for work. She told him she would wait until he was gone, then sneak into our bedroom to check my phone for evidence. Eric claimed he never agreed to her cutting my hair. He was shocked when I called him at work. I asked Eric if he had seen these supposed photos from the private investigator. He admitted that Daniela never showed them to him, even after he went to her house and demanded to see them. He now believed they never existed. I asked Eric why he didn't call me immediately after his mother left our house. Why didn't he warn me? Why didn't he come home to make sure I was okay? He had no answers to these questions. Eric then made a confession that stunned me. He revealed that 2 days after I left, he went to Daniela's house and found a small box in her nightstand. Inside were locks of hair. Not just mine, but what appeared to be hair from other women. Some of the locks had dates written on the attached tags, going back several years. Eric recognized one date as corresponding to his breakup with his college girlfriend, Jessica. When Eric confronted Daniela about the box, she became hysterical. She claimed the hair was from dolls she collected. When Eric didn't believe her, she locked herself in the bathroom and refused to come out until he left. Eric has since spoken with 2 of his ex-girlfriends. Both confirmed that strange things happened during their relationships with him. Items gone missing, unexplained damage to their belongings, anonymous threatening letters. They had both blamed Eric and ended their relationships. Eric now believes his mother was responsible. After Eric left Sarah's apartment, I sat for hours thinking about everything he had told me. Part of me felt sympathy for him. He had been manipulated by his mother his entire life. But another part of me couldn't ignore the fact that he had betrayed me. He had allowed his mother into our bedroom while I slept, knowing her intentions were malicious. The next day, I went to a salon to get my hair fixed. The stylist did her best, but with the uneven cutting Daniela had done, the only option was to shave my entire head and wait for it to grow back evenly. I sat in the salon chair watching the last of my hair fall to the floor, tears streaming down my face. Last weekend, I returned to our house to collect more of my belongings. Eric wasn't home, which was a relief. As I was packing my winter clothes, I noticed something odd about my jewelry box. Several pieces were missing: a pearl necklace my grandmother left me, a pair of diamond earrings Eric gave me for our 3rd anniversary, and a silver bracelet I bought on our honeymoon. I searched the entire bedroom but couldn't find them. I called Eric to ask about the missing jewelry. He sounded surprised and said he hadn't touched my jewelry box. Then he went quiet for a moment before asking if all my jewelry was missing or just specific pieces. When I told him which items were gone, he sighed heavily. Eric revealed that each of those pieces had been gifts from him or had sentimental value connected to our relationship. He then admitted that Daniela had been to our house several Erices since I left. She had a key, and Eric had been working long hours. He promised to ask her about the jewelry. 3 days later, Eric called to tell me he had confronted Daniela about my missing jewelry. She initially denied taking anything, but when Eric insisted on searching her house, she became defensive. She eventually admitted to taking the items but claimed she was just keeping them safe until Eric came to his senses and divorced me. Eric recovered my jewelry and dropped it off at Sarah's apartment, leaving it with her when I wasn't home. Yesterday, I received a certified letter from Daniela. Inside was a handwritten note warning me to stay away from her son. She claimed to have evidence of my numerous affairs and threatened to make this evidence public if I didn't agree to a divorce. There was no evidence enclosed, just threats. I took the letter to a lawyer who advised me that Daniela's actions, cutting my hair, entering our house without my permission, taking my jewelry, constituted assault, trespassing, and theft. The lawyer suggested filing a police report and seeking a restraining order against Daniela. I'm considering my options. Part of me wants to press charges against Daniela and force her to face consequences for her actions. Another part just wants to move on with my life and put this nightmare behind me. Eric calls daily, begging for another chance. He promises to cut contact with his mother and attend counseling. I don't know what to do. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update. A lot has happened, and I'm still trying to make sense of it all. After consulting with my lawyer, I decided to file a police report against Daniela for assault, trespassing, and theft. The officer who took my report was sympathetic, but warned me that these cases can be difficult to prove. Nevertheless, they agreed to investigate. 2 days after filing the report, 2 officers went to Daniela's house to question her. According to the police, Daniela became hostile and refused to cooperate. When they mentioned the possibility of a search warrant, she admitted to cutting my hair, but claimed Eric had given her permission to do so. She denied taking my jewelry. The police asked to speak with Eric, who initially tried to defend his mother. But when faced with potential charges for aiding and abetting, he admitted that Daniela had taken my jewelry and other items from our house over the years. He even revealed that Daniela had a spare bedroom in her house where she kept things she had taken from our home. Small items I hadn't even noticed were missing. A coffee mug I used every morning, a scarf Eric had given me 2 Christmases ago, even family photos with my face scratched out. The officers obtained a search warrant for Daniela's house based on Eric and my statements. What they found was disturbing. Daniela had a collection of items not just from me, but from all of Eric's previous girlfriends. There were journals where she had documented their crimes against her son, most of which were ordinary interactions she had twisted into something sinister. There were hundreds of photos of Eric with various women, with the women's faces either scratched out or covered with black marker. Most disturbingly, they found a detailed plan for how to drive me away from Eric. It included steps she had already taken, spreading rumors about me cheating, cutting my hair, stealing meaningful items, and steps she planned to take in the future, including tampering with my birth control and placing hidden cameras in our house. The police arrested Daniela on multiple charges including assault, breaking and entering, theft, and stalking. She was released on bail the next day with conditions including no contact with me or Eric. Eric was horrified when he learned about the evidence found in his mother's house. He came to Sarah's apartment again, this heiress with a letter from a therapist confirming he had started counseling to address the years of manipulation by his mother. He begged me to consider reconciliation, promising that things would be different now that he understood the extent of his mother's behavior. I agreed to meet Eric at a coffee shop to talk. He arrived early and was waiting with a cup of coffee for me when I got there. He looked better than the last heiress I'd seen him, clean-shaven, well-dressed, more rested. He slid a small box across the table. Inside was a key to a new apartment. Eric explained that he had moved out of our house the week before. He couldn't stay there knowing what had happened, knowing he had betrayed me there. Eric admitted that he had been a coward. He had been so afraid of his mother's disapproval that he had allowed her to mistreat me repeatedly. He recognized now that her behavior wasn't normal motherly concern but rather obsessive and controlling. He had been blind to it because it was all he had ever known. I asked Eric why he didn't warn me after his mother left our house that morning. His answer shocked me. He admitted that he had returned home shortly after Daniela left. He saw what she had done to my hair but was too afraid to wake me up and tell me. Instead, he went back to work, hoping I would blame someone else or believe it was a random break-in. It was only when I called him directly that he realized he couldn't hide from what had happened. This revelation was the final blow. I could almost understand Eric being manipulated by his mother throughout his life. I could almost forgive him for letting her into our house. But I could not forgive him for seeing what she had done to me and choosing to run away rather than stand by me. I returned the key to the new apartment and told Eric I wanted a divorce. The look on his face was one of complete devastation, but he nodded and said he understood. He promised to make the process as easy as possible for me. As I was leaving the coffee shop, Eric asked if I thought he should maintain contact with his mother. I told him that was his decision to make, not mine. He seemed disappointed by my answer, as if he was still looking to others to tell him what to do. Last week, I found an apartment of my own and moved out of Sarah's place. It's small, but clean and bright, with large windows and a tiny balcony where I've set up a container garden. My new neighbors are a retired couple who brought me a homemade lasagna as a welcome gift. The police investigation into Daniela is ongoing. My lawyer believes there's enough evidence for the case to go to trial, but it could be months before that happens. In the meantime, I've obtained a temporary restraining order against Daniela. Eric has been cooperative with the divorce proceedings. He's not contesting anything, and has agreed to my terms regarding the division of our assets. His only request was that I keep our dog Max, saying that he wouldn't be able to care for him properly while working through his issues. Max has adjusted well to the apartment and seems to enjoy our daily walks in the nearby park. My hair is starting to grow back. It's still very short, but the stylist says it's growing in evenly now. I've received many compliments on my new look, with several people assuming I cut it this way on purpose. I haven't corrected them. Update 3. It's been 3 months since my last update, and 6 months since the morning I woke up to find my hair cut. So much has changed in that Aries. The divorce was finalized last month. The process was relatively smooth thanks to Eric's cooperation. We sold our house and split the proceeds. I used my share as a down payment on a small townhouse closer to my office. Eric moved to another state for a new job. Before he left, Eric came to say goodbye. He looked healthier than I had seen him in years. He thanked me for filing the police report against his mother, saying it forced him to confront the reality of her behavior and his own complicity in it. He mentioned that he was continuing therapy in his new location and had joined a support group for adult children of manipulative parents. Eric also revealed that Daniela had been diagnosed with a personality disorder during her psychological evaluation for the court case. The diagnosis helped him understand that her behavior wasn't normal and wasn't his fault, though he acknowledged that his failure to set boundaries had enabled her to continue her destructive patterns. As for Daniela, she accepted a plea deal last week. In exchange for pleading guilty to reduced charges, she received 2 years of probation, mandatory psychological treatment, and a permanent restraining order prohibiting her from contacting me. She's also required to pay for the therapy I've been attending to deal with the trauma of her assault. The most surprising development came from Kyle. After hearing about what happened, he reached out to me and revealed that Daniela had contacted his partner Michael during his visit with us. She had told Michael that Kyle and I were having an affair, going so far as to send fabricated text messages as proof. Michael, knowing Kyle's character, had immediately shown him the messages. Kyle had confronted Daniela by phone, threatening legal action if she continued spreading lies. He hadn't told me about the incident because he didn't want to create problems between me and Eric's family. Kyle's revelation explained why Daniela had become so fixated on the idea that I was cheating with him. It wasn't based on our innocent lunch, but on her own fabricated narrative that Kyle had already rejected. When her attempt to drive a wedge between Kyle and Michael failed, she turned her efforts toward convincing Eric. Last month, I received an unexpected letter from Jessica, Eric's college girlfriend. She had learned about the case from a mutual acquaintance and wanted to share her experience. According to Jessica, Daniela had engaged in similar behavior during her relationship with Eric. Daniela had spread rumors about Jessica at her workplace, resulting in Jessica losing a promotion. She had also broken into Jessica's apartment and destroyed family photos and keepsakes. When Jessica tried to tell Eric about his mother's actions, he refused to believe her, which ultimately led to their breakup. Jessica's letter included contact information for 2 other women who had dated Eric before me. I reached out to them, and both shared similar stories. One woman had her car vandalized. Another found her pet cat missing, only to discover later that Daniela had taken it to an animal shelter in another city, claiming it was a stray. In all cases, Eric had either denied his mother's involvement or minimized the severity of her actions. Hearing these stories helped me realize that what happened to me wasn't isolated or personal. Daniela had a pattern of targeting women in Eric's life, and Eric had a pattern of enabling her behavior. This knowledge reinforced my decision to end the marriage. My life has taken unexpected turns since then. The dental practice where I worked was purchased by a larger company, and my position was eliminated. Instead of looking for another office manager job, I decided to finish the business degree I had started years ago. I'm taking a full course load and working part heiress at a local bookstore. I've also reconnected with friends I had lost touch with during my marriage. Looking back, I realize how isolated I had become. Daniela's interference wasn't limited to direct confrontations. There were subtle ways she had worked to separate me from my support network. She would schedule family events that conflicted with plans I had made with friends. She would make disparaging comments about people I cared about, planting seeds of doubt in my mind. And Eric had supported these efforts, always insisting that family should come first. My hair has grown out enough that I no longer feel self-conscious about it. In fact, I've decided to keep it short. The style reminds me of how far I've come and what I've overcome. The experience with Eric and Daniela taught me valuable lessons about setting boundaries and recognizing manipulation. I've become more protective of my personal space and more cautious about who I allow into my life. At the same heiress, I've learned the importance of maintaining connections with people who genuinely care about my well-being. I still have moments of anger when I think about what Eric and Daniela did to me. There are nights when I wake up in a panic, feeling phantom hands in my hair. But these episodes are becoming less frequent as Eris passes. I recently ran into Eric's cousin Kyle and his partner at a restaurant. They invited me to join them for dinner, and we spent hours catching up. Kyle mentioned that Eric had reached out to him to apologize for believing Daniela's lies. According to Kyle, Eric seemed genuinely remorseful and was working hard to rebuild his life with better boundaries and healthier relationships. While I hope Eric finds peace and healing, I have no regrets about ending our marriage. Some betrayals cut too deep for reconciliation. I'm focused on building a life that's authentically mine, free from manipulation and fear. For the first heiress in years, I feel like I'm standing on solid ground.